Vikram?
Thank you, Andra, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you're joining in from. My name is Vikram Ghosh, and I lead up the business development and partnership team here at Chef. I should also mention that I am a long-time Microsoftie or an ex-Microsoftie, so spent a bunch of time at Microsoft working with our partners at Microsoft. Now, I wanted to set a little bit of context for what I'm going to talk about today. I wanted to talk about the landscape of what is going on in business, and especially in a world which is hit by COVID and all of us are working from home. I'd like to lay that in context of what I'm going to talk about today. I would also then spend a little bit of time talking to you about the market and then dive deeper into the opportunity that exists for partners such as yourselves, specifically managed service providers, system integrators around DevSecOps, and hopefully share a few slides that talk about how Chef can be your strategic partner as you go around capturing this large market opportunity that exists out there. So a little bit of context, and this is actually pre-COVID, but this is a pretty interesting graphic that I just wanted to make sure that we take a little bit of time to digest. What you're seeing here is market capitalization of companies like CBS, NBC, Fox, and ABC. And this is, I'm sorry, this is not market capitalization, this is revenue. These four companies' market revenue is equivalent to Google and specifically YouTube's revenue. That is a pretty astounding stat here, which means that YouTube alone is equivalent to these four traditional media houses. On the right side, what you're seeing is annual revenue of Amazon as compared to the annual revenue of Target, Best Buy, TJ Maxx, Macy's, Kohl's, Sears, and Gap. And you'll be able to see that Amazon alone is equivalent to these pretty large enterprises in the retail space. Now, at Chef, we talk a lot about the coded enterprise. If you look at YouTube and Amazon, there's one thing in common that you would notice here. In addition to being members of the FANG club, both of these two represent what we call a coded enterprise, which means their business processes are extremely agile. Their IT that supports those business processes is also extremely agile and can turn at a dime. Whereas you go to any of the traditional companies today, it's pretty hard for them to repivot their businesses. So what we're trying to say here is most enterprises today, typically brick and mortar enterprises, legacy, not born in the cloud enterprises, they want to be like the Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and Microsoft. They want to be able to respond back to their customer needs, respond back to how the market is trending, but their IT processes and IT generally holds them back. And that's an area that we define as a coded enterprise, and we think there's a ton of potential out there. If you know about why IT is struggling, in the pre-COVID world, they would struggle because of these four boxes that you're seeing on the left side of the slide. And this is a study that our friends at Dell did. They struggle with legacy systems. They struggle a lot with speed and agility. They struggle a lot with culture, just getting people to work together. And they struggle with security. And underpinning all of these four boxes, they also face an acute lack of talent. Now, 91% of businesses were facing persistent barriers to digital transformation. And in the COVID world, this was a graphic that was famous or infamous in the social media going around a couple of months ago, where there was a simple question that was who led the digital transformation of your company? It was neither the CEO or the CTO, it was COVID-19. And COVID-19 is actually driving a lot of companies to go fully digital and push them to a limit where we are seeing three key drivers. One is a driver around cost reduction through automation. If you go back and look at all the earnings reports that have been announced since COVID hit back in March, you would see a common theme even within technology. You would see two areas in technology that are growing through a rapid growth, even in times where people are cutting down on spend. One definitely is cloud. Second is automation. And customers are choosing automation because it promises to reduce costs dramatically. In fact, we have a customer who was struggling with projects that were being done in 2 to 3 years. And once they automated their IT processes, their infrastructure, their compliance and security requirements, as well as their application delivery frameworks, those 2 to 3 years were compressed into 2 to 3 months. The second trend that we are seeing, especially in the COVID world, is remote management of infrastructure through code. The reason why I say that is everybody is working from home, so remote management is kind of given. The management of infrastructure through code is allowing people, as they're sitting at home and trying to manage infrastructure, to collaborate a lot more easily and a lot quicker. I'll give you an example that most of you probably face today. How many times do you have to get on a call, a Teams call, or call up a human to talk to them about a problem? Probably 2 or 3 times. But if you take that effort in writing out what you're trying to communicate, it becomes a lot easier for people to be able to work in their timelines and then report back with what their understandings are. Yes, physical in-person touches are still required, but the fact that you're able to articulate something as a sheet of paper or as slides makes collaboration a lot easier for you. Same is the case when it comes to infrastructure, compliance, and application delivery. If you were able to define these processes as code, especially now when people are working from home, have a ton of personal issues that they're dealing with, kids at home and remote schooling, it becomes a lot easier for people to be able to collaborate. In fact, we have a customer in a segment that is particularly hard hit today, and it is retail. Traditional retail, as you know, is very, very hard hit with COVID today. And they chose to invest in our tools, especially now, because it drove collaboration between different parts of the IT development as well as security divisions within the IT organization. And finally, as people are working from home, the chances of somebody making a mistake that causes a security vulnerability or a compliance snafu is becoming huge. So if you are able to instantiate compliance rules as code and manage compliance as if you're managing the infrastructure, it becomes a lot better for our customers to be able to stay compliant, stay secure as they are moving fast in a COVID world. Again, these three are trends that we caught from more than 10 customers that we interacted with through all of H1 at Chef. The rewards and the consequences of this are grave. The rewards are fabulous, the consequences are grave. Yesterday, I noticed that Pier 1 Imports, which is a traditional retailer, has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. But if you look at people who are able to work fast, if you just look at people like Amazon, people like Uber, Uber's business was hard hit, but they quickly repivoted to food delivery, and Uber Eats has kept Uber alive, which means that these companies that are pivoting and moving fast are able to get a significant increase in their market capitalization as well as their revenue. The DevSecOps market was forecasted to grow even before COVID This is a slide or a graph that I've stolen from our friends at IDC. And if you look at it, the DevSecOps market was at $5 billion in 2018, and it was estimated to be at $15 billion, representing a CAGR of 24% over 5 years. The part on this that is growing faster is the part in deep blue here. DevOps, ALN, security, and dev tools, growing from 3 to 10, and DevOps systems management were forecasted to grow from 2 to $5 billion. Now, in a COVID world, the point that really struck home for me was this quote from a managing director at Deloitte, who's a customer of ours. And she mentioned that they're going through a really, really tough time because most consultants at Deloitte cannot be there in person with their customers. But automation is going to be very, very critical for them to be able to deliver on customer projects more efficiently. Now, what do I mean by software automation? And what does software automation mean in terms of the different environments that you're working in? I hope all of us are working in Azure, but even within Azure, you're working on servers or Azure VMs. You're probably dabbling around with containers and Kubernetes. You're working with PaaS systems, such as Service Fabric. A few of you are also probably playing around with Windows virtual desktops in Azure, in addition to edge networks, as well as traditional applications. But software automation is centered around four key concepts. One, to be able to define that automation. Second, to be able to scan it or scan an environment that's running, act on it, and then enforce compliance targets, or what we call enforce the state of any compute target. From a workload standpoint, it means things like configuration management, patch management, as well as deployment of software, validating security postures, managing dependencies, testing and automating that whole test process, as well as manage virtual desktops as well as edge systems. If you think about the benefits that this brings up, there is a straight line benefit into the bottom line of a company in terms of efficiency as well as security. The efficiency comes from getting the three groups, the dev groups, the ops groups, and the security groups collaborate on a common artifact called code. And finally, making sure that customers do not hit upon compliance roadblocks or compliance, I would say, glitches. And that is a significant impact to the bottom line of a company. It also has a tremendous top line impact, especially in this world where everybody is remote and we're all struggling to do things virtually. And that is speed, the ability to be able to pivot your business and move fast. And that has a direct top line impact, as we've seen over the last 5 or 6 months. Now, what do we mean by the tool chain and what's the opportunity for all of us? The tool chain that enables DevOps and DevSecOps is an extremely fragmented ecosystem of a lot of tools, a few of them open source, but the biggest challenge here is to make sense out of it. What you're seeing on this graphic is a standard DevOps, DevSecOps flow here, with being able to define the infrastructure, compliance rules, as well as application as code, being able to build it, test it, release it, deploy, operate, monitor, and security layering on top of all of this. Now, the term DevSecOps never existed before 2015. And the reason why it never existed was DevOps was treated as a small science project within the traditional enterprise. People like Facebook had already adopted these concepts which allowed them to be really rapid in how they would develop and deliver applications. But a traditional organization like Starbucks or Macy's or any of our traditional brick and mortar companies, for them, it was a science project. The reason it was a science project is for Facebook, move fast and break things is how they operate. For a Macy's or a Citibank, move fast and break things is not an option. They all want to move fast, but breaking things is not an option. And what they would often fear about breaking was security, because this whole process of DevOps really gave rise to a very, very quick time between when code was developed and deployed into production. And security would often take a backseat. So a major hindrance to adoption of DevOps was security. Now, this is also an area where there is enormous potential for partners such as yourself. The reason behind that is this is the landscape. Those 6 or 7 blocks that I showed you consist of a lot, a lot of small open source projects and customers or companies who are trying to take these open source projects, stitch it up together, make sure that they are able to then operate it at scale. Guess what? That is not an option for the traditional enterprise. And that is where partners such as yourselves have such a unique opportunity, because you can pretty much go in and stitch up that whole tool chain. And on top of that, say, hey, you know what? I was your managed security services provider. I'm also going to be the people who are going to deliver modern DevSecOps to you, thereby enabling your teams, your DevOps teams, to move fast and thereby deliver the business results that you were hoping as a customer. And that is a massive proposition in front of you. At Chef, we faced a lot of this. A lot of our customers, especially the early ones, gave us feedback that they loved using our tools, but the time that it took for them to be able to stitch Chef and all the other different components of this DevOps tool chain was extremely hard and time consuming. So what we did is we aligned our offerings into 4 key workload-based solutions that includes all the components that a customer needs to get started. And those 4 areas are around infrastructure management, application delivery, managing compliance, and managing desktops, with an underpinning of shared enterprise-grade capabilities. Now, why is it that I'm stressing on this word enterprise? At Chef, we are known for our open source projects. But what you might not have heard is over the last 2 years, we actually built up a lot of enterprise grade functionality within our products that we then go and sell to our customers. The reason behind doing that was open source projects were great for customers to experiment with, but when it came to large scale deployments, they would struggle. And we actually got a lot of insights from our system integration partners who were trying to build up these solutions by themselves, but they were spending a lot of time and energy to understand the goods, the bads, the uglies, and then they would spend a lot of time in making sure that they choose the right components. So what we did is we took off that burden from our system integration partners, especially around compliance. And we said, look, we're going to give you a solution that is pretty much turnkey. You would be able to set up the pipeline. You would be able to integrate it with GitHub if customers are using GitHub. A lot of them do. You would be able to use Azure DevOps pipelines or GitHub Actions, and then instantiate a solution on Azure or on using either Azure Resource Manager or Terraform. But that solution will be compliant. You've already set up that pipeline that delivers compliance. The opportunity for our system integrators, as well as our managed service providers, was to be able to write up custom compliance profiles, things like PCI, HIPAA compliance, and a whole bunch of 3 and 4 letter acronyms that I'll not get into on this call, but a lot of our partners saw immense value there. And that is how they were able to take advantage of our compliance solutions to deliver to their customers, especially now in a world where everybody was working remote and customers were struggling to stay compliant as they move fast. Now, how do you get started? There's a pretty easy URL I want you to remember, learn.chef.io. What this does is provides you with the right talking points to be able to understand the solution. For people who are more technical, it provides them with a self-guided learning mechanism wherein they can learn about how they can use Chef solutions and ultimately deliver outcomes, great outcomes to our mutual customers. Again, I know people are at home, and a lot of times all we do is end up working and looking at our families. This is a learning opportunity for your developers, as well as your operations people, that balances skill development as well as billable time and expenses. And this is an online system where your consultants can go in, learn about Chef, get badged on Chef, and ultimately in spring of 2021, be a Chef product specialist. But if I was to bring it all together for you, there are 5 key elements that I touched upon. First was the market. The market for DevOps and DevSecOps is rapidly expanding, which means that the barriers of entry into that market for you as a system integrator or as an MSP is pretty low. In a rising market, it's easier to get market share and grow revenues. The second part that I touched upon was around the environment that we're living in, especially COVID. And what we've seen is COVID is really accelerating the need for automation while delivering great business outcomes and making our customers more compliant. The barriers for our customers is around struggle with the individual building blocks that I showed you. The product that we offer provides you with a workload aligned solution that leaves enough room for you to add premium services on top. As well as from a people development standpoint, there are learning modules that make it easy for you to consume the information that we were sharing in really bite-sized pieces. And that then can help you build out your unique differentiators and position them to customers. If you are looking forward to working with us, we're all open to onboarding new world system integration partners, as well as managed security service providers, as well as managed service providers. Our partner program is available to you on chef.io/partners. You can also write to us at partners@chef.io. With that, I will turn this over to questions.
Thank you, Vikram. Everyone, if there are any questions, feel free to take yourselves off mute and ask away while I will check the event post for questions. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but I do have a question. Vikram, you mentioned, you talked about the COVID and the pandemic, since it's quite an actual topic. Is there any particular success story that you can share a success story regarding automation, maybe?
I'll actually just go back to a slide on this deck, and I cannot unfortunately take names, but remote compliance through code. A pretty large ride-sharing company headquartered in the US in the San Francisco Bay Area. They were struggling to juice up their food delivery system. And we were instrumental in helping them make that pivot from carrying people to delivering food. That is just one. In fact, if you Google chef and your favorite ride-sharing company, you'll be able to see a blog post that these people have written. The second one that I'll raise out for you is a quote that I stole from one of our customers at Deloitte. And Deloitte, as you know, is going through a really hard time because most of their consultants cannot be on site with customers. With the ability to be able to automate infrastructure and automate compliance and having their consultants collaborate on code, they actually are looking forward to sustaining the drop that they are seeing in their business and making sure that they don't get impacted as severely as they were initially forecasting.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for that. Any other questions? We still have 1 minute.
And finally, if there are no more questions, if anybody on this call or later wants to get in touch with us, please, we're available at partners@chef.io, or else you can also submit in a web form from chef.io/partners.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you for the presentation and calling out this last slide. I think we are ready to wrap up. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your time. This recording will be posted on the Microsoft Partner Community event post. And with that, any other questions you may have, we can later take and answer. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.